it's probably fair to say that we don't have many types of these videos on YouTube as regards to a brand new release for a console that is pretty much deemed as being a retro type console. Well, yeah, it is retro, isn't it? Yeah. It's a new shoot 'em up for a aged old console, the Sega Dreamcast, and the game is REDUX Dark Matters. Just been released, I think it came out towards the back end of last week. I received my copy early this week, and it's effectively a continuation, rehash or remake, whatever you want to call it, of the original Dux, which was actually revised into Dux version 1.5, and has seen another re-release, effectively re-release, under the title called REDUX Dark Matters. I would say this title was a bit controversial, and I'll probably explain that as I go through some of my thoughts on this game. Now let's get the bad stuff out of the way first, and these are the sort of key highlights or negatives for me. You wouldn't call them highlights, would you? Because they're well, because they are negative. But anyway, let's get them out of the way first. So one of them is to do with the actual graphical display mode that's being used for the Dreamcast, and I don't know what the guys have done as regards to the development of this, and but it is the game itself is noticeably blurry, certainly compared to Dux and Dux 1.5. The actual image quality, whilst the graphics themselves have been slightly overhauled over the original version of Dux and Dux 1.5, for some unknown reason the actual graphics that have been displayed on the screen have a lot of blur on them, and there's a severe lack of sharpness and clarity, sort of to the point, in my opinion, where it actually detracts a bit from the game. Okay, once you start playing the game you don't notice it as much, but when you first see the game, I would say it does look slightly nasty. Now I've tried this game in 240p mode, so using an RGB SCART cable into a CRT, and I've used it in VGA mode into a CRT, and it looks pretty bad in both modes, if I'm being honest. I thought in some way that it would look better in RGB mode, because you get the native scan lines on it then, if you're using it into a CRT that's low res, and normally that sort of sharpens the image up a bit, but it makes absolutely no difference whatsoever. And then putting it into VGA mode, you'd think the opposite. Okay, it's in VGA mode, it's in high res, so it should be sharper. Well, it's not, it's still blurry. So that is a bit of a major down point for me, if I'm being honest. So yeah, not great. The second thing, sort of linked as well into the graphical side of the game, is the somewhat jerky scrolling. Something that you won't be able to get across in a YouTube video, because YouTube will only accept 30 frames a second. So it won't be reproduced in a YouTube video, but trust me guys, there is jerky scrolling in this game, and again, for something like the Dreamcast that is capable of extremely smooth scrolling, to have a release game, certainly a shoot 'em up, horizontal shoot 'em up, it looks a bit bad to me, to be honest. It just shouts out sloppiness, which is a bit of a pain, really. And I suppose really to cap it all off as regards to the negativity really around the graphical representation of the game, I personally think the production values are pretty weak. in part, some of that is to do with the actual, well, to do with the way the graphics are certainly displayed. The menu structure itself is weak. You know, there's not much there as regards to options. There is no track sequence on there. It's pretty static, and certainly the package that you get as a game. So in regards to the manual itself, I mean, the manual is just a waste of time. It is a waste of whatever trees were used to actually produce the manual, as in paper. It is absolutely worthless as a manual. And it's not a manual, it's just a pamphlet in essence. And the only thing on there really is just to say about the buttons that are used on the joypad. It is virtually useless. There's nothing about the game. There's no introduction to the game. There's no introduction to the ships, gameplay. You know, nothing. There's absolutely nothing. It was a total waste of time including it in the package. So I suppose in some respects, as regards to my initial impressions, I haven't been greatly impressed with the game, if I'm being absolutely honest. And you know, it's not cheap. Okay, it's not dear, but it's not cheap. If it was something like a tenner, you would perhaps say, well, okay, sort of thing. But the game was cost me £28, so it's not throwaway type of money, but it's not hellishly expensive. I admit. And the actual route to the game, as regards to why we got this game, is that it was a Kickstarter project. So in that respect as well, I don't know, you expect a Kickstarter project to be a bit more professional than this, as regards to the way that the way that the end product is being presented. Now, apparently there are very low production runs. I think there's only going to be about 1,000 copies of this game, I think. So that will probably sort of support any lower production value, because the amount of copies they're looking to sell. You know, so I suppose based on that, for £27, £28, it's not that bad. But I'm not overly impressed with it. I'm not overly impressed with it, if I'm being honest. So look at the good aspects of the game. You know, let's forget about the bad stuff at the moment. Let's actually look about at the good things. You know, I would class this game as a bit of a sort of thinker's shoot 'em up. It's not a bullet hell type game. If you're used to sort of cave type games, it's not like that. It's definitely a sort of R-Type-ish clone, but not as good as R-Type to me. But it is a weird kind of shoot 'em up, and until you start playing it, you don't. It's hard for me to really convey, really, in words, what I mean by a thinker's shoot 'em up. But it can get pretty manic on screen, and but the actual pace itself isn't a really quick paced game. It gives you time to think. And that's why I'm saying the thinker's type of shoot 'em up. It's not just sit there and just blast the shit out of everything. I mean, you do have to do that, but it more or less gives you time to think, or you need to be thinking about where you need to place your ship on certain areas, and how you fire, how you use your fire. Which sort of leads me on to something else as regards to a good point, in the context of the power-ups that are available. There is an absolute immense amount of power-ups that you can collect, and you certainly do need them at certain parts of the game, because it can get pretty manic. So your shot variety is pretty varied. So that's a good element to the game, in my opinion. The music as well, it is pretty good music. It's not the best I've heard, but it's not crap, and I would say it's certainly above average. It is good music. It is good music. A difficulty setting of the game. Right, there are 7 levels in the game. The original Dux game there were 6, so you get an extra level. Again, there's a bit of bone of contention around that because there was a belief as part of the Kickstarter project that there would be more levels than 7, but there's 7. So in effect, you'll get an extra level over Dux. And like I said, the graphical element of Redux has been revamped over Dux, but it is effectively the same, but it's been revamped. There is more detail there, and the backgrounds are certainly better, pretty as regards to their content, but unfortunately that takes a bit of a hit as regards to the way that the graphics are portrayed on the screen, with this over smoothing effect that's been applied. So yeah, sorry, coming back to the difficulty side, I think it was on the second proper game that I had, second full credit that I played on the game, I managed to get through nearly to the end of the 3rd stage, and like I said, there is 7 stages there. So I would say the difficulty level, it certainly ramps up after the 1st stage, which is in effect what you really want. You want the 1st stage to be fairly like sort of softly get you into the game, and then it progressively gets harder, which it did do through stage 2 and stage 3, and I'll certainly give it some more gameplay to see how it progresses for the later levels. But it's not rock hard, it isn't rock hard, but there's certainly a challenge there. So I'd probably say the difficulty level at the moment seems to be set sort of roundabout right, at the right sort of pace. So that's got to be a good point as well. And the playability side of it is a bit of a weird one, like I said, because it's this type of thinkers type of shoot 'em up. It is different for me for a shoot 'em up. I'm not used to shoot 'em ups like this, and if I'm being totally honest, it doesn't really pull me into the game. It doesn't entice me to think, oh shit, right, I've got to carry on here, I've got to get to the next level, blah blah blah. And I don't know why. It doesn't really pull me in. So it's that might be a bit Marmite as regards to, and that's my opinion. Other people may pick the game up and think, oh, you know what, I really love this, I absolutely love it, it's great, blah blah blah. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, if I'm being honest. If you've already got Dux, and you were sort of mulling over getting Redux, you know, would I recommend it outright to get? Would I say just go and get it anyway, full stop, whether you've got Dux or not, or whatever? I suppose because of the price of it, for being £27–28, it's not a massive amount of cash, but you know, if it's potentially a turd, do you really want to spend all that sort of cash on it? Look, it's not a turd, it isn't a turd, but I do feel a little bit let down. I've got to be honest, I didn't actually find Dux that great. I didn't think it was a great shoot 'em up. Redux is better in some ways, but it's certainly, in my opinion, failed to meet that point, I think, that it, certainly as regards to the Kickstarter project, sort of promised or insinuated. So it falls a bit short on that. It is an okay shoot 'em up for the Dreamcast, and there's a lot of better shoot 'em ups out there, without a shadow of a doubt. There really is. So, you know, sorry for this review to be a bit negative, guys, if you were looking forward to Redux, but that's my opinion on it. You may buy it and think something totally different. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Speak to you again soon.